Prior to the advent of the trolley system, horse-drawn vehicles were used as a means of conveyance. Starting around the time of the Civil War, these small cars, usually between 12 and 20 feet in length, were drawn along a track by either one or two horses. This certainly was a tiresome ordeal for the horses, as they traveled over a variety of terrains and during all kinds of weather. Each car was manned by a motorman and conductor, who were generally outside the passenger car and, like the horses, were exposed to extremes in weather. The first electric railway in the United States began service in 1887 at Richmond, Virginia. This system was designed by Connecticut-born Frank J. Sprague. A giant amongst trolley personnel, Sprague had learned about electrical applications when working with Thomas Edison. After this successful event, the clamor for the streetcar railroad escalated quickly across the United States. It took Bristol only 2 years to petition the state legislature for a trolley charter in 1889. During the late 1800s and continuing into the 20th century, a group of upper-class Yankee industrialists and businessmen, as well as their descendants, held a tight grip on what took place in Bristol. Names such as Barnes, Dunbar, Ingram, Muzzy, Peck, and Welch were quite prominent within this group. Traditionalists by nature, around 50 such families were able to make decisions for the entire community. By interlocking their industrial or business ownerships with their position on local banking, utility, civic, or philanthropic boards, this small group of friends held immense power over the citizens of Bristol. This would include the emerging immigrant population, whom they looked down upon as uneducated and unimportant. The Sessions and Treadway families far outstripped the others at this time in their ability to exert immense power and influence. A succession of descendants garnered the same prestige, thus being able to influence decision-making and to acquire wealth over a long period of time. The same group of elites, spearheaded by the Sessions and Treadways, secured a charter from the state legislature for the Bristol Electric Light Company in 1886. This private for-profit business contracted with the town for street lighting and with its citizens for residential use. Prior to this time, a few streets were lit by kerosene lamps that needed regular attention. Main Street became the first benefactor of electricity, with 12 streetlights being installed. This power was being supplied from the engine room of a local grist mill. Businesses on Main Street were also able to acquire electricity in order to light their establishments. Lighting continued to extend out within a community over the next decade, at which time a very profitable business merger would transpire. The same group of elites, armed with a petition hastily written by attorney John J. Jennings, petitioned the State General Assembly at the very end of its 1889 session to grant a charter for the Bristol and Plainville Tramway Company. The loyal Republican cronies in the disheveled legislature, always at the beck and call of their Bristol friends, quickly authorized this charter. Governor Morgan Buckley, for whom the Hartford Bridge is named, killed the charter with a pocket veto by simply not signing it. He recognized the charter's merit, but stated that the legislature had violated its own rules by failing to give proper public notification. After a deadlock vote in an 1891 session, a charter was finally secured on June 14, 1893. The privately owned Bristol and Plainville Tramway Company could run a street railroad powered by electric cables from above. Fees could be assessed for the conveyance of people and freight, with the company also having the right of eminent domain to acquire land it needed as private right-of-ways. The first trolley, however, would not run for an additional 2 years. A dispute over land rights and a conflict with the railroad forced this delay. The route in the village was changed because of the crossing at Broad Street. Construction began in May of 1895. The first car ran to Lake Compounds on August 11th of the same year. Full service between Bristol and Plainville commenced the next day. The Tramway Company, in addition to providing transportation, also sold electricity, gas, and steam heat for industrial, business, and residential purposes. Here we see a tramway crew working on the electric wires near the 5th District School at the corner of Pine and Middle Streets. Electricity was distributed for lighting to factories such as the New Departure Administrative Office. Also to retail stores such as the pharmacy of William J. Madden, and to the homes within the community. Gas was supplied from storage tanks at the intersection of Riverside Avenue and Blakely Street. This was an extremely profitable venture with money being poured back into the trolley system. Here we see an invoice for services rendered to the Bethesda Lutheran Church in Forestville for the installation of steam heat. A new dawn is settling over the nation and Bristol as people are continuing their transition from the self-sufficiency of a farming lifestyle to commuting to urban areas in order to earn a living. The harsh realities of urban tenement living are being alleviated by the daily trolley commute from out of town or from the lush green beauty of the countryside. Suburban real estate investment and development are being hastened with the ease of transportation provided by the trolley. During the warm days of spring, the hot sweltering heat of summer, or the brisk clear days of the fall, trolley riders preferred the open trolley, or breezers as they were called. As they traveled the route, the winds or breezes would swirl throughout the moving car, providing a natural form of air conditioning. Lake Compounds was one of the favorite destinations during these seasons. In the late fall and during the harsh New England winters, the closed trolley provided the traveler with the necessary protection. 3 trolley snowplows were available to clear the tracks. Men who worked in the trolley barns and even private citizens would clear the tracks so that the trolley schedule could be maintained. The Bristol and Plainville Tramway Company, later renamed the Bristol Traction Company in 1927, during its 40 years of service, accumulated a fleet of 47 trolleys. 18 were open trolleys, 22 closed cars, and 7 convertible styles that could be adjusted to the season. These convertible units were quite cumbersome to use and had little operational success. 1 flat trolley was also included within the fleet, being used to haul equipment and for maintenance. 2 different trolley barns were used over the years to house the vehicles. These were located on the north side of Riverside Avenue behind what is now Webster Bank. All trolleys had 4 wheels and covered approximately 13 3/4 miles of track on paved roads, the side of roads, or through private land right-of-ways. Each trolley was manned with a motorman and conductor. The motorman was in charge of running the trolley, while the conductor managed boarding, collecting tickets, and handling safety. Each received extensive training for his position. With the increased manufacturing and purchase of automobiles, the trolley line to Lake compounds was no longer profitable, and in the summer of 1932 ceased operations. The impact would be felt across the nation. Bristol's trolley system was able to survive until 1935. This was later than most surrounding municipalities. A charter was secured for a motor coach system by the Bristol Traction Company in the same year. This company would provide bus service within the community for many years. The first route we will take will be from Plainville via East Main Street to the Forestville Center, continuing on Broad Street to Todd Lot, a private right-of-way, then on to the Y at the intersections of Pine and Middle Streets. Bristol trolley number 9 has just entered Plainville from the west. The motormen and conductor are taking a brief break before starting their return trip.
All aboard!
Plainville Center is now the departure point for a return trip to Bristol in a westerly direction, while the trolley on the left is heading east to New Britain. The trolley is now passing the Sessions Clock Company on its right-hand side. The Sessions Clock Company was founded by William E. Sessions when he purchased the struggling E. N. Welch Clock Company in 1902. This company became a major producer of spring and electrically driven clocks. On its left side can be seen the Forestville Reading Room and the branch of the Bristol Public Library. The Sessions family supported this library free of charge for many years.
All aboard!
As we enter the center of Forestville, it becomes obvious that the eastern side of the street has not been developed. Pharmacist Gage Kent would construct these buildings in the mid-1920s. The large building in the distance is the Forest House Hotel, which functioned for 50 years and accommodated passengers arriving by rail. After the hotel closed, it became a private rooming house. The Forestville Confectionery, or Palace of Sweets, owned by Angelo Ziotis, was located on the first floor. This land is now the Thomas W. Quinlan Veteran Memorial Park. Moving along Broad Street, we pass the Munn blacksmith shop. Owned by Damas Munn, this shop provided forging and blacksmith services. It eventually transitioned to become Munn's Auto Hospital. Proceeding along Broad Street, we are now turning left onto Todd Lot, so named because this was a private right-of-way used by the Tramway Company. At this time, Todd Street does not exist. Turning right onto sparsely populated Pine Street, we pass the home of letter carrier Allen Dresser. As we travel to the intersection of Pine and Middle Street, we pass the home of Joseph McDonald. We are now stopped at the intersection of Pine and Middle Streets. In the early version, we see the 5th District School, and in a later image, the Mary A. Callan School. We will now take a trip to Lake Compounds from the Y, so called because it branches to the left to Lake Compounds and to the right to continue to Bristol Center. The 5th District School can be seen on the left. Trolleys leave every 20 minutes on their 10-minute journey to the lake. Sundays with afternoon band concerts and Wednesday dance nights find the vehicles especially crowded. We travel down Lake Avenue, which abounds in wild and romantic bits of nature. Entering the park, we see the carousel and casino. From overhead, we see the 4 lanes where the trolleys finish their destination. There are 2 groups entering the park, one for a Sunday school picnic, while the others have unloaded for a firework display. This trolley belongs to the Meriden-Southington Compounds Tramway, and it is beginning its journey to the lake. It will enter the park from Lazy Lane in Southington, traveling along the eastern side of the lake. An outing group from New Haven has just entered the park from the lake side. Here we see the 4 trolley terminus lanes, the 2 closest to the casino reserved for Bristol trolleys, with the 2 closest to the lake used by the Meriden Company. People are entering the lake from both directions. After an enjoyable day at the lake, we listen to the music of the carousel as we return to the Y. Back to the Y, we will now journey on to Bristol Center by way of Riverside Avenue. As we leave, we see the 5th District School fade into the background. Just before we reach the Bristol Brass Dam on Middle Street, we turn sharply onto a private right-of-way running along the south side of the Pequabic River and in front of the New Departure Bell Company. We now travel over a narrow metal trolley bridge onto Riverside Avenue, where we view the Bristol and Plainville Tramway's gas tanks. We now pass the J.H. Sessions factory on Riverside Avenue. Established in 1879, this company manufactured trunk and furniture hardware. On the left side, we view the Penfield Saw Work. This company produced saws and knives of tempered steel. On the right, we are going by the Bristol Manufacturing Company, incorporated in 1837. It was a producer of textiles, linens, and men's knit underwear. Part of its building presently houses the New England Carousel Museum. At the corner of Riverside Avenue and Main Street, we see the old Muzzy store and its later replacement, the Bristol Trust Company, and further down, the Connecticut Light and Power Company. On Riverside Avenue, in front of the post office, built in 1912, we prepare to turn left for our journey to Terryville. As we head south on Main Street, we notice the post office has not yet been built, and there is construction taking place on the west side of Main Street. Years later, we notice the completed post office as well as the construction further up the street. Turning right onto School Street, we pass the Center building built by Judge William J. Malone. To its left is the Bristol Press and the Miss Bristol Diner during a blizzard in 1934. The trolley now passes the South Side School built in 1856 on School Street. Next door to the school is the Bristol Baptist Church, built in 1880 and demolished to build a new church on the same spot in 1969. We are now passing the new St. Anthony's Church, built by Bristol contractor Cosmo Vaca and dedicated in 1930. At the corner of West Street, next to the Pequabic River Bridge, is the West End Grill Diner. Crossing West Street to Divinity Street, we can see the steeple of the Emmanuel Lutheran Church and the Dunn Funeral Home. Next, on the right, we come to the Park Street School, later named after Principal Clara T. O'Connell. In the earlier years, the trolley passed Hickory Park, a privately owned fairground. Today it is the site of Muzzy Field.
All aboard!
We continue up Park Street after some spectators have disembarked the trolley to watch today's events at Muzzy Field. Passing Rockwell Park, we hear the joy of children playing. Rounding the corner and traveling up Terryville Road, we come to Cosmo Vaca's contracting and lawn ornament business. As we finish our journey to Terryville, we travel under the Terryville Railroad Bridge and to the intersection of Terryville Road with Route 6. An open and closed car finished their destination to Terryville Center.
All aboard!
After a return trip to Riverside Avenue, we are now eager to travel up Main Street to North Main Street and onto Doolittle's Corner. The trolley is working hard to climb Main Street. On the left, we witness billboards advertising a burlesque show. This is next to the small wooden building. As we move up Main Street toward the railroad overpass, we are passed by a horse and buggy. Looking east on Main Street, we see the Bristol Trust Company, which will become the Bristol Savings Bank. The tall building next to it is the A.J. Muzzy store. The Bristol Masonic Lodge is housed in its upper floor. Climbing Main Street, we view the brick buildings on the west side that have replaced earlier wooden structures. Before turning onto North Main Street, the trolley travelers look south down Main Street. We will now take a trip down North Main Street to Doolittle's Corner, which will be renamed the Maple End. Rounding the corner of North Main Street, we see the eloquent Gridley House Hotel, with stores being located on its first floor. We now see an older trolley rounding the corner before the railroad overpass is constructed, and also a trolley in the same location years later. As we climb the hill on North Main Street, passengers now have a close-up view on their left of the Root Building and the Town Hall. Looking down North Main Street, from the corner of Laurel Street, we see the Bristol Furniture Store on the left. Traveling north, we soon passed the former J. H. Sessions Company, which moved to Riverside Avenue. This building served as the Bristol Boys Club for several years. On the left side, just before Center Street, we come to the Horton Manufacturing Company. Incorporated in 1888, it produced world-class fishing, golf, and archery equipment. The tracks on North Main Street have been cleared from a 1934 snowstorm, and the trolley is able to maintain its schedule. We are now crossing Center Street and will pass two large manufacturing sites. As we cross Center Street, we see the ND Inn Hotel, constructed in 1916 in order to accommodate new departure employees. The building to the right is the administrative office building, completed 2 years earlier. We are now passing under the new departure walkover tunnels spanning North Main Street. Organized in 1888 by the Rockwell brothers, New Departure became a major producer of bicycle coaster brakes and a variety of bearings for all purposes. They also produced the Haupt Rockwell car and the first yellow cab in the country. We are now passing the movement shop of the E. Ingram Company, built around 1904. This company produced a variety of clocks and dollar watches, better known as pocket watches, from the mid-1800s to 1967. Further down the street, on the left-hand side, we pass the Crowley General Store. As we round the corner of North Main Street onto Route 6, we notice the new auto chemical truck in front of the Uncas Fire Company. We have now arrived at our destination of Doolittle's Corner, presently called the Maple End. 5 streets intersect at this location: Maple Street, Judge Street, Burlington Avenue, Farmington Avenue, and North Street. Named after a butcher who owned a shop at the eastern corner of Burlington Avenue, this was the site of numerous train accidents. We are now beginning our journey on North Street, back to the center of town. The final trolley route was the Spur line from Main Street to Woodland Street. Built in 1906, this route was sparsely used and did not prove to be a financial success. Standing on the railroad overpass, we can see the trolley tracks extending up Main Street. Climbing the steep incline of Main Street, trolley number 37, a Birney car, the only one-man car in the trolley fleet, heads towards Summer Street. On the right side, as we progress up Main Street, in the distance, we can see the Lindstedt block and the Funk block on the corner of Prospect Street. As we move closer, the Funk Furniture Store is to our left, with the larger building on the right being the Prospect Hotel. We also can view the beautiful Depot Park. On the left, we are now passing the Bristol National Bank and the Curtis Building. The bank was built by Charles S. Treadway and John H. Sessions and successfully ran in this location from 1877 to 1922. As the trolley turns onto Summer Street, we see the old Bristol Library built in the 1880s at the corner of High Street. Years later, we view the new library built in 1907 at the same location. As the trolley turns to Summer Street, the passengers look south toward the railroad overpass built in 1901.
All aboard!
With the passengers aboard, the trolley begins its ascent up Summer Street. The trolley now moves up Summer Street toward Center Street. On the right, the trolley passes Bristol High School, which graduated its first class in 1891. Students from the eastern side of the city often rode the trolley to high school. This building served as the freshman building from 1929 to 1959. It now is home of the Bristol Historical Society. On the left is Prospect Methodist Church, built in 1894, after Reverend Charles Buck denounced the Sunday trolley as a hindrance to Christian growth. John H. Sessions, a major financial contributor to the church, resigned as president of the Bristol Plainville Tramway Company. Turning onto Center Street, we see the Whiteman and Hall houses that are still located across the street from the Prospect Methodist Church. Soon we come to Casa Largo, a miniature brick castle at the top of Main Street. Built by Joel Case around 1880, its eclectic appearance includes three architectural styles. We are now passing Bellevue Avenue. The Sessions and Treadway families lived next door to each other on this street. As we round the corner to Maple Street, we see the William J. Tracy Homestead. For years, this served as an O'Brien funeral home. Presently, it is an accounting office. To our right, we see the old St. Joseph Church, built in 1855 to accommodate the Irish immigrant population. Next to the church are the rectory, convent, and school, all built in the years 1901 and 1902. Years later, we pass by the beautiful Gothic structure of the new St. Joseph Church, dedicated in 1925. Looking through the Federal Hill Green, we now see the Federal Hill School, and in the distance, the Swedish Lebanon Lutheran Church. On our left, we now travel by the first Congregational Church, built in 1832. The Congregational Church in Bristol was founded in 1747. The present structure is their third meeting house. The First District School appears on our right. The wooden structures on the left were built around 1867, with the brick building being constructed in 1894. This school was also named the Federal Hill School. and was later renamed to honor Thomas H. Patterson, who served as principal for 50 years. Moving towards Stern Street, we can see the Swedish Lebanon Lutheran Church built in 1891. This is now the home of the Salvation Army Citadel. Moving along the west side, the trolley now passes 4 beautiful Maple Street homes that still remain today. At the corner of Woodland Street, we pass 2 homes. The first, of Georgian style, is the Mile Lewis home, which would become the American Clock and Watch Museum in 1952. The other is the Stockton homestead. This house would be removed and is now the parking lot for the Clock Museum. As Trolley 37 ascends Woodland Street, on the left side it passes the home of Calvin E. Fuller. On the right, we are now passing the home of A. L. Norton at the corner of Stewart Street. Across the street on the right side, we now pass the home of Arthur G. Nearing. Trolley number 37 has just about completed its destination to Oakland Street. Looking up Woodland Street, we can see that the journey to Oakland Street is complete. Having completed its journey to Woodland Street, trolley number 37 begins its travels back to Main Street. The following 3 images demonstrate how the trolley cars received their name. The wheel or shoe that slid along the overhead electrical wire was called a trolley. This piece of equipment was connected to a pole that became known as the trolley pole. This pole was attached to the car, which became known as the trolley car. Through the trolley, pole, and wires, trolleys received electrical current that propelled them along their routes. As mentioned earlier, the elite families of Bristol even had the ability to influence political outcomes. Serving as a perfect example would be the Meritorial Election of 1911, when John Wade became the first mayor of the city of Bristol. George W. Hull, a socialist by political persuasion and a very popular Bristol personality, had easily outdistanced Wade in a preliminary election geared to narrow the field from 4 to 2 candidates. Hull had also been able to influence the structure of the city charter of 1911, but this was in a direction not necessarily favorable to the town's elite. His political platform focused on the trolley system and public utilities. He proposed that the privately owned Bristol and Plainville Tramway Company be charged for using city streets, that utilities be placed in public control, and that the fees to lay compounds be reduced, all of these not favoring the Yankee upper class. George Hull lost by the smallest of margins, but chose not to contest the election. It was later proven that votes were mishandled or deliberately hidden, and that he should have been elected mayor. I guess one could say that he was gotten by those who wanted to maintain political power. Although trolleys are often considered relics and only relegated to museums, its modern-day offspring is alive and well. Powered by electricity, light rail trains crisscross about 20 American cities from the East Coast to West Coast. Yes, history does repeat itself.